welcome back to my channel, and this is another edition of Meaning Behind the Music. And so what I like to do with these is I pick about 4 songs that I think might have an interesting background. I try to do from all different decades, but being that music nowadays, most anyway, has no real meaning behind it besides what you hear, I tend to scoop up songs from the 90s back. If there is a song that you think from today's period that you think might have a good backstory, put it in the comments below and I will think about it for future. Anyway, I take these and I put them onto Patreon, and then there they vote on which one they want me to do the meaning behind the music for. So this one they voted on was The Animals, House of the Rising Sun. And I'm interested because I love this song. It's a brilliant song. I used to sing it at karaoke. Mostly when my brothers were there because they love this song too. And a lot of people thought it was The Doors. A lot of people say, oh, I love that song. It's by The Doors. I'm like, it's not. It's by The Animals. So let's get started, because while it's a short story, I feel like, a short, not story, I guess, but a short history, it's interesting. And anyway, I'll get to that. Okay, so House of the Rising Sun, the melody, the song itself was based on a British folk melody. So that's where the song, the ding 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 ding, you can kind of see that. So and it was first recorded by bluesman Texas Alexander in 1928, and the lyrics were first written down in 1937 when 16-year-old Georgia Turner sang it in Kentucky. So there's many theories about where the lyrics came from. So that's where I'm like going over it in my head. There's many theories about who it's about, where it came from, who wrote it. But the most widely accepted is about a brothel in New Orleans named after Madame Marianne Le Soleil. Le Vent. Sorry, I missed the last name. Le Vent. And which is French for rising sun. Brothel, right? Get it? So the brothel opened in 1862 when Union troops occupied the town, and that's where I guess they like to go, was to the house of Madame Le Soleil Levant, or Rising Sun, ayo. And it closed in 1874 when the town received too many complaints from neighbors.
Hi, excuse me, is this the city? I'd like to complain about my next door neighbors.
What's going on there?
Just lots of sex, lots of it.
Anyway, okay, so moving on from that, now let's get to the 60s. So it was performed while touring in England with Chuck Berry. The Animals were touring with Chuck Berry in England, and this was in 1964. So lead singer Eric Burdon said, quote, "This is the song that I was just fated to. It was made for me and I was made for it. It was a great song for the Chuck Berry tour because it was a way of reaching the audience without copying Chuck Berry. It was a great trick and it worked. It actually wasn't only a great trick, it was a great recording." So he's definitely right about that. But yeah, so in the 60s, you definitely want to sound different. Can you imagine? Okay, so Chuck Berry's out there singing. What does Chuck Berry sing? All I can think of off the top of my head is "Run, run, Rudolph, no one's gonna make it to town." Johnny be good. Johnny be good. Okay, so you're jamming, you're hearing him jam in that style, and then you're at the concert and you're like, woo, woo, woo. Then all of a sudden, of course they could be first, being that Chuck Berry was like huge famous. But anyway, then all of a sudden the Animals, then you start hearing, that would be definitely a stark contrast. So I see where he's coming from with that. Like, they didn't want to be copying him or copying that style, even though he was hugely popular, so they did their own thing with this House of the Rising Sun. So what really got to me, and I think that this was like super interesting, is that I have a theory, and my theory is not a theory, it's a proven fact, and that is Bob Dylan is wrapped up in almost every single influential famous song. I found out that Bob Dylan wrote Knocking on Heaven's Door, right, obviously, and then Guns N' Roses redid it. But I had heard Guns N' Roses version first. Then I find out when I'm working in country radio that Bob Dylan wrote Wagon Wheel. I thought it was Old Crow Medicine Show. I thought they were the first ones. Nope, Bob Dylan. So look it up. Look it up. There's actually, I don't know if it's a Rolling Stone article or back when they were actually a music, magazine. But there's some article that talks about songs you didn't know Bob Dylan wrote. And there's like 30 of them. So that is my proven theory, is that Bob Dylan is behind pretty much every influential song. But here's the thing. He's not behind House of the Rising Sun, but he's still in the story. So he still creaked his little big toe in there. So it influenced Bob Dylan. How cool is that? How cool for the Animals to be like, we influenced Bob Dylan. Oh, here's what I mean by that. They influenced Bob Dylan to, quote, Bob Dylan's words, turn into a rocker. So after this, he bought an electric guitar and put it to folk music. Hey-oh. He did his first electric set in 1965 after hearing them in 1964 performing House of the Rising Sun, and he did that at the Newport Folk Festival. Was his first electric folk set. What? I still think that's so cool. Even if I don't even know what the Animals sing besides House of the Rising Sun. If you know, let me know. So to me, they're kind of a one-hit wonder. I don't know if they are or not. But to be like, yeah, we were kind of a one-hit wonder, and we influenced Bob Dylan. Come on now. So, there you have it. That's the story. There's not really much else to it except that it gained popularity and became, what it is. It was a British folk song. It was a Southern black folk song. But above all else, it was a song that defined, like, the sound, the vibe, and the energy of the 60s. And so there you have it, and that is your meaning behind the music. Music with Monnalee. Cheers.